The year is 1944. The world is exhausted, cities are broken, and one country still has the biggest pile of chips. At Bretton Woods, 44 allied nations tried to build a new financial operating system before chaos rebooted the planet. The deal was simple. Currencies would link to the dollar, and the dollar would link to gold at $35 an ounce. It turned the dollar into more than money. It became the golden middleman of global trade. And America had the treasure chest to make this promise believable. The dollar crown looked extremely shiny. Europe needed rebuilding, Japan needed recovery, and global trade needed a currency everyone could recognize without squinting. So the dollar became the bridge. Trade invoices, central bank reserves, loans, and confidence all flowed through it. But every great system hides one tiny problem. In this case, the tiny problem was basic math. As Europe and Japan recovered, they earned more dollars and began asking, quite politely, "Can we get the gold now?" The awkward part? Dollars outside America were multiplying faster than the gold waiting inside the vault. More spending, more foreign dollar claims, and one fixed gold price created a pressure cooker with a green label. The dollar still sat on the throne, but underneath it, the floorboards were creaking like a haunted spreadsheet. Then came 1971. A television speech was about to cut the golden rope tying the dollar to metal. Foreign governments could no longer simply bring dollars and demand gold. The old promise was suspended. But the dollar did not die. It changed costumes. Gold left the stage, and oil rolled in wearing sunglasses. August 15th, 1971. Richard Nixon appears on television, and the world's financial skeleton quietly hears a terrifying cracking sound. Nixon announces that foreign governments can no longer freely exchange their dollars for American gold. The famous gold window slams shut. For decades, the dollar had whispered, "Trust me, I represent gold." Suddenly, that whisper became, "Trust me, seriously." Currencies that once stood neatly in formation now started wobbling. Exchange rates floated like confused balloons at a finance conference. This was not just a policy change. It was a software update for global money downloaded without asking the users. The dollar survived, but its identity changed. It was no longer a golden receipt. It became a promise backed by power. That power came from American markets, military reach, banking networks, and the simple fact that everyone already used dollars. And habit is powerful. Humans returned to familiar systems, like opening the fridge 3 times, hoping new food appears. But removing gold also removed a restraint. The money machine had more room to breathe, stretch, and occasionally misbehave. Governments and central banks gained flexibility. But flexibility can become a temptation when the printer button starts looking very friendly. Still, the world did not abandon the dollar. Too many loans, contracts, commodities, and reserves were already trapped in its web. Washington needed a new anchor for demand. If gold was leaving the stage, something else had to hold the spotlight. That something was oil, the fuel of factories, trucks, ships, armies, power grids, and every nervous minister's headache. If oil was priced mainly in dollars, then every economy needing energy would also need access to dollar plumbing. Gold had disciplined the dollar. Oil would protect it, and this new arrangement would become the petrodollar legend. China watched the sanctions era carefully, like someone seeing the neighbor's power cut and immediately buying backup generators. If trade, banks, and reserves all flow through dollar pipes, then one rival may control the emergency valve. So Beijing started building alternatives. Not a magic dollar killer, but something more practical. New payment infrastructure. CIPS, the cross-border interbank payment system, helps clear and settle renminbi payments across borders more efficiently. Important detail: SWIFT sends financial messages. CIPS is built for RMB clearing and settlement. Similar battlefield, different tools. This tunnel is not finished, but it is real. And in finance, plumbing becomes power very slowly, then suddenly. Then comes the Belt and Road Initiative. Ports, railways, power plants, telecom cables, and contracts stretching across continents. Every port loan and railway invoice is also a financial doorway. Use enough doorways, and a currency gets a neighborhood. The strategy is not one giant knockout punch. It is cables, swaps, loans, settlement channels, and patient map coloring. Now add the digital yuan, or e-CNY, faster programmable money, tested at home and explored for cross-border use. In theory, digital rails could reduce dependence on old correspondent banks. In practice, global trust is harder than coding. Foreign users do not only want speed. They want convertibility, legal clarity, liquidity, and the freedom to exit. And China still keeps capital controls. The tunnel exists, but many travelers keep checking where the emergency exits are. So the dollar highway remains crowded. But underneath it, China is laying a second route, one red rail at a time. And China is not alone. Around the table, other countries begin asking the same dangerous question. Why use dollars forever? China was not the only country looking for an exit ramp. Around the world, a bigger question was spreading. Why depend on one currency forever? BRICS began with Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Then expansion turned the club into a much louder room. By the latest official BRICS description, the group includes 11 members, including major energy and emerging market players. This is not one empire with one boss. It is more like a dinner table where everyone dislikes the old bill, but argues over the new menu. The dollar king still dominates the room. But now, more delegates are quietly asking for separate checks. De-dollarization does not mean burning every dollar tomorrow. It means settling some trade in local currencies whenever possible. Russia and China increased local currency trade. India explored non-dollar oil payments. Brazil and China pushed direct settlement links. Why does this matter? Because currency power follows real stuff: oil, gas, metals, food, factories, shipping, and hungry consumers. If even a slice of commodity trade moves away from dollar invoicing, the dollar empire does not collapse, but its monopoly gets dented. Meanwhile, central banks began treating gold less like museum decoration and more like geopolitical insurance. Yesterday, it was called an ancient relic. Today, the same gold bar wears sunglasses and calls itself a strategic reserve asset. But here is the cold shower. IMF data still shows the dollar as the largest reserve currency by far. BRICS has ambition, resources, and frustration. What it does not have is one central bank, one bond market, or one shared command. So this is not a clean replacement. It is a swarm of partial alternatives biting at the edges of dollar dependence. The rebellion is real, but messy. And in that mess, one ancient asset is quietly walking back into the throne room: gold. So, is the US dollar going to collapse tomorrow? Probably not. Sorry, dramatic thumbnail goblins. Even below its old peak, the dollar remains the biggest reserve slice. The crown is dented, not dropped. Dollar power is not just habit. It is treasury markets, bank funding, trade invoices, derivatives, legal trust, and enormous liquidity. US treasury markets are like a giant financial ocean. Everyone complains about the waves, then sails there anyway. The yuan has factories behind it, but capital controls make investors ask a very basic question. Can I leave easily? The euro is serious, gold is trusted, local currencies are useful, crypto is loud, but none replaces the whole system alone. Gold is excellent insurance, but try paying a container invoice with a shiny brick and watch the accountant cry. Even digital money is not automatically anti-dollar. Many stablecoins are dollar-based, turning the old empire into an app. The future is not one clean winner. It is a fractured map. Dollars here, yuan there, euros elsewhere, gold underneath. For ordinary people, this sounds distant until trade routes get longer, hedging gets pricier, and groceries start auditioning for luxury status. Fragmented finance can make global trade less efficient. Less efficiency can become higher costs. Higher costs become political fireworks. Companies may pay more to hedge currency risk. Governments may pressure trade into preferred rails. The spreadsheet becomes geopolitical. Your money becomes more than a payment tool. It becomes a passport inside a machine of alliances, sanctions, and trust. So the dollar does not vanish. It shares the stage with yuan rails, euro circuits, gold vaults, and digital coins. The next money war may not begin with a shot, but with a blocked transaction and one question. Whose money do you trust? To understand why money became a battlefield, start with one terrifying modern phrase: transaction denied. Meet SWIFT, not a magic money pipe, but the secure messaging network that helps banks tell each other what to move. The message is not the money itself, but without trusted messages, cross-border finance starts moving like a snail wearing ankle weights. Now, combine SWIFT messages, dollar clearing, correspondent banks, and legal jurisdictions. Congratulations, you have financial choke points. When sanctions hit, the punishment may not look explosive. It looks like a locked screen, a rejected transfer, and a very sweaty banker. A bank cut from key networks can still exist on paper. But internationally, it suddenly feels like shouting through a pillow. The scarier lesson came from reserves. If your savings sit in someone else's jurisdiction, access can become political. For Washington and allies, this is leverage. For rivals watching from outside, it is a giant, flashing warning label. That warning label says, do not keep your entire economic life inside a system your opponent can freeze. Here is the irony. Every time the dollar system is used as a sword, more countries start shopping for shields. Some shields look like CIPS. Some look like local currency trade. Some look like gold bars quietly moving into vaults. No country wants total isolation. They want optionality. Plan A, Plan B, and a secret Plan C hidden in the spreadsheet. And ordinary people feel the aftershocks through prices, shortages, fees, exchange rates, and the mysterious disappearance of cheap imports. The result is not one clean rebellion. It is competing networks, dollar pipes, yuan tunnels, local rails, gold vaults, and digital gates. The dollar sword still cuts deep, but every swing teaches the world one lesson. Build another route before the gate closes. The dollar is not just a currency. It is the plumbing hidden under the floor of globalization. You tap send on a screen, but behind that tiny button lives a jungle of banks, messages, clearing, settlement, and legal rules. SWIFT helps banks communicate securely. It does not carry treasure chests. It carries trusted instructions. When dollar clearing and secure messages combine, the system becomes boring, powerful, and absolutely terrifying to replace. Then comes the Treasury market, a giant ocean of dollar debt where investors complain about the waves, then sail anyway. Central banks still hold more dollars than any other currency. The crown is scratched, but the throne is not empty. Even when two non-American companies trade, the invoice may still appear in dollars because everyone understands the price language. Oil, wheat, metals, shipping, insurance, loans. Once the price board speaks dollars, everyone brings a dollar dictionary. The yuan is building roots, and that matters. But small payment share shows how hard network effects are to break. Local currency trade helps, but replacing the dollar means coordinating laws, banks, markets, trust, and crisis backstops. Companies also need hedging. Without deep markets to protect against currency swings, trade becomes a roller coaster with invoices. This is the cruel magic of network effects. People use dollars because others use dollars, which makes more people use dollars. And digital money may not end the dollar. Dollars stable can turn the old empire into a phone app. So the future is not one switch flipped overnight. It is parallel systems competing, connecting, and occasionally blocking each other. The dollar's secret is not only power, it is convenience. And convenience may be the hardest empire to overthrow. After gold left the stage, the dollar needed a new bodyguard. And oil walked in like a barrel wearing sunglasses. Factories, trucks, ships, armies, power grids, almost everyone needed oil. So oil pricing became geopolitical oxygen. If global oil contracts are mostly priced in dollars, then energy-hungry economies keep a dollar dictionary nearby. But careful. There was no magic public treaty saying all oil on Earth must be sold only in dollars forever. The real story was messier. Security ties, Saudi oil revenues, dollar pricing habits, and US Treasury markets reinforcing each other. Oil exporters earned dollars. Some of those dollars returned into banks, bonds, and investments. This was petrodollar recycling. In the 1970s, recycled oil dollars helped feed global lending. Then higher dollar interest rates made many borrowers sweat. The more oil used dollar pricing, the more useful dollar markets became. And the more useful they became, the harder they were to leave. Today, some energy sellers and buyers experiment with yuan, rupees, dirhams, and local settlement. The old habit is being tested. But testing alternatives is not the same as replacing the whole machine. A few side roads do not erase the highway. Oil prices are not moved by currency alone. Supply, demand, inventories, OPEC decisions, finance, and shocks all push the barrel. Still, oil dollar habits strengthened dollar demand, which helped America borrow cheaply and finance deficits with unusual comfort. But privilege has side effects. When US rates or the dollar surge, shockwaves can travel through energy bills worldwide. So the petrodollar was not a spell. It was a feedback loop. Energy, security, finance, and habit feeding the dollar machine. And now, as energy trade fragments, the real question is not whether the petrodollar dies, but how many pieces it breaks into. For years, sophisticated finance people treated gold like an old museum king, shiny, dramatic, and supposedly outdated. Then central banks started buying again, and suddenly the museum relic became strategic reserve insurance with excellent lighting. The reason is simple. A bond is someone else's promise. A bank deposit is someone else's liability. Gold just sits there. If reserves can be frozen by another jurisdiction, governments begin asking, what part of our wealth can nobody switch off? For many emerging powers, gold is not nostalgia. It is a mute little bodyguard that does not take orders from rival courts. Recent data shows central bank demand stayed strong, even when gold prices were already high enough to make accountants blink. In surveys, central bankers increasingly expect global gold reserves to rise. That is not panic. That is portfolio paranoia in a suit. But do not misunderstand the signal. Gold is not replacing the dollar tomorrow. It is balancing the risk of depending on it. Gold is excellent insurance, but try paying a shipping invoice with a shiny brick and watch the accountant question reality. Digital finance is fast. Gold is slow. But in a crisis, slow and unhackable can look strangely attractive. So reserve managers diversify. Some dollars for liquidity, some euros for balance, some yuan for trade, and some gold for sleep. Dollars are liquid, useful, and everywhere. Gold is heavy, boring, and nobody's liability. That boring part is the feature. For de-dollarization advocates, gold is not the whole plan. It is the anchor under a messy basket of alternatives. For ordinary people, central bank gold buying is a warning sign. Governments are preparing for a less trusting world. When trust fragments, vaults get popular. And now the final question appears. Who actually wins the new money war? So, who wins the new money war? The annoying answer is, nobody wins cleanly, because money is not a boxing match. The dollar stays powerful because it is everywhere. Reserves, debt, trade invoices, bank funding, derivatives, and safe assets. The yuan gains ground where China trades, lends, builds, and settles. But capital controls keep the exit door under supervision. BRICS has population, commodities, and frustration. What it does not have is one central bank, one bond market, or one command voice. Gold does not run the payment system. But when trust cracks, gold becomes the quiet bodyguard in the corner. For normal people, this global chessboard arrives through prices. Fuel, groceries, shipping fees, interest rates, and exchange rates. A fragmented financial world can be less efficient. Less efficiency often means higher costs, and higher costs become political fireworks. Sanctions will not disappear. The power to block access is too useful. But every blocked gate teaches others to build detours. Those detours may be yuan rails, local currency swaps, gold reserves, regional payment systems, or digital settlement networks. The future is not dollar collapse. It is dollar competition. Parallel systems that trade, clash, connect, and sometimes reject each other. Your money becomes a passport. It decides which gates open, which fees rise, and which financial neighborhoods you can enter. The dollar keeps the castle. China builds roads. BRICS gathers resources. Gold guards the basement. Digital money rewires the walls. So do not ask only which currency dominates. Ask who controls the rails, the rules, the reserves, and the emergency exits. From Bretton Woods to oil, From SWIFT to sanctions, from BRICS to gold, money has become the quiet battlefield of empire. The next world war may not begin with a shot. It may begin with a blocked transaction and one question: whose money do you trust?